coming up. I got a bit of the cotton mouth this morning. So, I feel like I'm at a bit of an advantage. By the way, I feel like I'm at a bit of an advantage, and that is that I've had so much that has happened in my life, but there is no doubt to me, just because of what has been revealed to me. And by the way, really quick, guys, I'm broadcasting live from Studio J here in Oro Valley. I just want to let somebody know, back at the studio, I'm hearing mouse clicking and computer stuff, so you've got something open there you need to turn off. So I feel like I'm in a bit of an advantage, because I've had so much happen to me in terms of my health and just my life, that there's no doubt in my mind that there is a God. Okay, and I don't get preachy on this show. You can believe whatever it is you want to believe, and if you don't believe in God, then hey, to each your own. But don't give me a hard time for my belief in God. But I've had just so much exposed to me and so much happened to me that there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that God exists. Now I've got another example of this, and the reason why I bring it up is because I want to use this again as sort of my little PSA to say, hey, go get yourself checked out if you haven't been to the doctor in a long, long time. It's part of the reason why, or it is the reason why, I played that clip from Howard Dean talking about Obamacare, and that the only way Obamacare will work, and I do that thing with my fingers, is if it does what it's supposed to do, and that is the employers are going to have to dump the plan that they have now for you that you enjoy, because it's not going to be cost effective for them. They're going to force you to have to go on the exchanges because they're not going to offer you the regular health care. This is what it was designed to do. So the way that you have your health care now as you know it is going bye-bye. The idea that you can keep the insurance that you have, it's a fallacy. It's not going to, even with the $2,000 penalties, it's more cost effective for businesses to drop the plans they have right now, whether it's United or Humana or Blue Cross Blue Shield, whatever. So yesterday, I had to go, I've been doing my checkups with all my different doctors. So I've got my cardiologist, I've got my surgeon, and I've got my infectious disease doctor. Because in case you didn't know, the one of the side things that happened was when they went in to do the surgery, the second open heart surgery 3 weeks ago, when they opened me up, not to get gross, when they opened me up, the first thing that they saw was this quarter-sized clump of gunk. And I was talking with the infectious disease doctor yesterday, and I'm like, how obvious is it to a doctor when they see something like this? And he was talking about the different colors. And he's like, if it's a bright, sort of clear, creamy, you're kind of all right. Anything other than that, it's not good. And I guess the surgeon described it as dusky, which I either took to mean as grayish or perhaps it had a red tint to it and he was thinking of the Arizona sunsets. But when they opened me up, there staring at him was this quarter-sized clump of gunk that shouldn't be there. And just for the sake of the story, and I've mentioned this before, your heart is surrounded by this pericardial sac, and they've got to get to it. They've got to open it up to get to your heart. It was sitting right on top of that. So when you're looking at infections that you have, the deeper you go into the anatomy, the scarier it is. And so being that this was inside of it was deep inside. I mean, you had to literally open me all the way up to my innards to find this. So thankfully, it hadn't infected anything else. And why it hadn't affected anything else, we don't know. Which is, again, this goes back to my whole, there's a God there, because he's watching over me. So I asked him, I'm like, okay, look, how did that bacteria get there? And he basically looked at me, and it's not because he's not a knowledgeable individual. No, the guy knows what he's talking about. But it's just because he doesn't know. He says, I don't have any conceivable answer as to how that bacteria got to that spot in your anatomy all by itself. I don't know how it got there. Basically, it's sort of the reverse. It's sort of the other way of saying it shouldn't have been there. The only explanation that he could provide was that during the first 2009 surgery, and they often say that if you want to get sick, go to the hospital because they're just petri dishes, that perhaps that infection landed in that spot before they closed me up in the 2009 surgery, and it's just been sitting there for 3.5 years. The fact that it didn't send off its minions to go do damage, yeah, I mean it's a miracle. This type of it was a form of mouth streptococcus. That's what this is. And I've got this IV line in my arm that I've been talking about. We've been aggressively pumping myself full of antibiotics just to make sure that we get it under control if it happens to be anywhere else. But there was no infection on my heart. There was no infection on my valve. There was no infection on my graft. And had there been, they would have had to have done the surgery replaced everything. I mean, that would have been catastrophic. But there wasn't. Now, I'm sure that there are those out there who don't believe in God that can sit back and explain, well, that's just random stuff happens, man. And hey, that's fine for you. But not for me. For me, everything happens for a reason. And perhaps this whole ordeal of this hole in my graft that prompted this after 3 years was simply to go and get at this one little lone dusty bacteria sitting there in my chest before it creeped out and went everywhere else. I find such a huge amount of comfort. I actually do. I find a massive amount of comfort in the wake of mystery. Because to me, it just all lends itself to, and there is somebody and something so much more powerful than I am that's guiding all of this. And again, I don't get preachy on the show. But to me, I sit back and I go, man, God be praised that I'm still here. He's watching over me. It makes me laugh too because I read this free thought blog every once in a while just for a laugh up on TucsonCitizen.com where blogs go to die. And again, you can make the argument going the other way, and that's fine. They don't have to believe in God if they don't want to. But the way that they just so diligently try to go and prove that God isn't there. There's an article up there right now talking about women and why they believe in God and all this nonsense. And I just sit back and I just laugh. I go, you know what? One day, on a long enough timeline, we're all going to have the answer to it. And I know that I'm going to be right. The other part to this too, though, is my PSA for the morning. If you haven't been to the doctor anytime soon, go get yourself checked out because you never know what's sitting in there that you don't know about. You may feel like you're the healthiest person on the planet, and I certainly did leading up to all this nonsense on April 5th, especially with everything that I've been doing with evolution up until then. But go get yourself checked out because you just never know. And if we don't do something about Obamacare, you may not even have the option that you have now. 751-1041 is the phone number. All right, coming up. An interesting bit of insight into Obama's Afghan trip. What was said and what wasn't said. And I mentioned yesterday my thought as to why this whole trip took place in the first place. And I kind of got some confirmation on that with this article I'll share with you coming up. 59 degrees outside. Your high today is 91, and you're listening to The John Justice Show on 104.1 The Truth, Tucson's News Talk FM.